T is not ready today, unfortunately, sad face. However, Mike is ready. I'm ready. And the important question is, are you ready? Hey, welcome to the Mykel Broady podcast. I'm Mykel Broady. It's a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for listening. We're in the Why series, so just to kind of rehash, we're looking at why this podcast exists, perhaps offering a bit of clarity into why you're listening to this even now. And so today we're going to talk about defying the odds. Last time we talked about learn for a lifetime. Today we're talking about defying the odds. And ahead of us, we still got redefining normal and exemplify kindness. I hope it's okay if we start off with a bit of a story. I would like to go over a story of a relationship that I feel exemplifies defying the odds in itself. And it's a story of a chubby boy and a basketball coach. And I'm going to tell the story from the perspective of the chubby boy. And to offer a bit more context, at the time the story began, the chubby boy just moved over to Vegas. He didn't have much friends. It was during the summer, and so he was pretty lonely initially. He didn't have anyone to hang out with. School wasn't in session, so he couldn't really make friends there. And so the only option he felt like he could take was to play basketball. Although he played it all the time, that was his passion. That's what that really took his mind off of that loneliness initially. And so whether it was, putting a bunch of dents in the door from playing so much on the Nerf hoop, whether it was going to the park nearby and shooting hoops on the most damning of double rims, or whether it was playing on a local basketball team, and which is where the basketball coach now comes in. And so playing on this local basketball team, this chubby boy was excited. He wanted to get involved. He wanted to learn. He wanted to play this game that he loves. But what he didn't expect was to see an amazing coach. And this coach, from day one, he was passionate about his team. In fact, he had T-shirts ready from the first game of everyone on the team, and it donned the name Las Vegas Nuggets. It didn't stop there. He bought Gatorade bottles for the whole team and even filled them up with Gatorade before every single game. It didn't stop there. He would also burn DVDs of the game and would add, stats and different things, points, rebounds, assists. But he would also put words of constructional criticism, words of advice, maybe just box out a little bit more when you're at the free throw line. And that inspired the chubby boy. That made him feel like someone is really looking out for me and they want to see me grow. But it didn't stop there. Even during practices, the chubby boy would look forward to when he could try to get out of laps. He would make deals with the coach and try to see if he makes 5 jumpers from the elbow off the backboard, if that would get him out of a lap or two. He greatly enjoyed that. He loved having this person that he can go to, and even if he wanted to get out something, he could try to get his way out of there. For this chubby boy, this basketball coach wasn't really a basketball coach. He was a father figure for this young man. And even when this team went undefeated 3 seasons, his relationship with the basketball coach didn't stop there. When he went on to middle school, the basketball coach would show up to games, home and away, offering his support, sharing words of encouragement when he felt needed. But my friends, it didn't even stop there. The chubby boy moves on to high school. But at this point, he's not really chubby. He's actually pretty tall, about 6'2", 6'3", really skinny. But the chubby boy at this time, he didn't know if he wanted to play basketball anymore. And it wasn't for no reason. He had a blood clot, a serious blood clot in his left leg that brought much pain and stress to him. So much so that he didn't even want to play the game anymore. There was no more fun in it. And he remembers vividly sharing the story with the basketball coach, dreading this conversation of going up to him and telling him, "Coach, I don't want to play anymore." For this person that was a father figure, he didn't want to mess up that relationship because he thought that that's what it was, that their foundation was basketball. But he soon found out after he shared the news with his coach that their foundation was far from just basketball. His coach was one of the first people to instill in this young man confidence in a life beyond ball, to instill confidence in this man that he's capable of far more than just putting a ball through a hoop. Even today when this chubby boy, again, not so chubby, but we'll keep going with this, he's in college, and this coach is still around. This coach is still setting up conversations with him. This coach is still investing into the young man, even financially when needed. It's with my great pleasure to let you know that this isn't some fictional story. This is real. And that's not a fictional coach. That's a real man. That's a man that has defied the odds seemingly all his life, and one that I'm very grateful for, and one that is with us today on the podcast. And that man is Richard Etienne. Coach Rich, thank you so much for being here. Please say hello to all of our listeners here on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. And hey, how you doing, everybody? I'm just glad to be here, man. I really am.
Well, it's great to have you here, Coach. We can't waste time at all, and we got to get right into it. And although that story might have had some resilience and perseverance in it, it's only a sliver of what's in store for today's conversation. I feel both of us honestly have close ties to defying the odds. I feel like we just need to kind of update the audience on it a little bit. And so why don't you start us off, Coach Rich, if that's cool? Can you share a moment in time where you feel like you defied the odds when it was seemingly all of them were against you? Everything seemed to be out of place, but you defied all expectations and defied the odds and created a future for yourself.
Yeah, definitely, man. The first time I felt that I actually defied the odds, it had to be, it was actually an emotional time for me too, actually. There was a time where, I love school. I love to learn, as you know personally. Hopefully they get to know that about me. But there was a time in high school where I was trying to graduate. And I was really struggling in school at the time. It was the beginning of my junior year, I believe. And my mom and one of my counselors, and I also had an aunt that was a counselor at the school at that time. They kind of brought me into school and into the office, and they said, guess what? Sorry, buddy, but I don't think you're going to be able to graduate on time. Mm. And it really hit me hard because it was the first time that I kind of had to learn a lesson that things had spiraled out of control, beyond my control, something that I couldn't fix. And they basically were telling me that you're kind of going to school every day for no reason, because I loved school, even though I really didn't love doing work. So I was going to school every day, enjoying it, hanging out with my friends. But literally, I think at the start of my junior year, I probably had maybe 2.5 credits. So think of that. That's a substantial amount that you're missing, and
right.
For me to kind of pull that out and graduate on time, it took a lot. But I think what really triggered me was the fact that I looked in my mom's eyes, and this competitive nature I've had my whole life, saw that I failed her and she no longer believed. It made me had to jump into action. So, to kind of cut the story, so it's not so drawn out, I kind of had to really buckle down. I went to night school for 2 years and day school. So I was literally in school, from about 7 in the morning to sometimes 8 at night. I had to do online classes, and this is before, it was really online. So when I say online, I'm filling out certain things, and then they're sending it to me in the mail. I'm completing that, completing classes, getting stuff sent in the mail. That's when I kind of start to figure out that I was pretty good at solving problems. I'm learning how to get credits in school by just working.
Right.
By submitting certain things to make sure that I can graduate on time. And to just kind of sum everything up, I graduated, and I barely graduated, but I actually graduated on time. I got to walk with my class, and that was a big moment for me because I was so far behind that I basically graduated in 2 years. So when you're not I've heard my whole life that I'm not a smart kid, and I always felt I was, but I just didn't like doing work, so I didn't really have a Coach Rich. And that's kind of why I always want to be that for you. You know what I mean? And people that I see myself in. It's because I didn't really have anyone during these times where I was up against the odds. They just kind of patted me on the back and said, good job, said you can do this. It was almost a pile on, and I don't want to play the victim or anything, but it was, some of that was brought on by me. I really didn't have a great attitude, but in all honesty, I was still a kid, a young man, now looking back on life, so, and everybody deserves a chance to give somebody to kind of want them to do good and is rooting for them. So with me graduating high school, that was the first time that I really knew that people couldn't define me. People couldn't tell me it's possible. And I love math, so I kind of did the numbers and realized when people tell you you can't do something, they're just kind of thinking about the masses of people. They're running the averages. And what I had to learn was when you're doing things that you feel are difficult, you always have to be more than average. And that was a big story for me. That was something that's a real pivotal point in my life, man.
That's amazing, coach. And just even, I haven't even heard this story. I feel like this is starting to become a trend because I know I said this with Mickey too. I need to start bringing more people in my corner so I can learn more about them. But that was
Yeah,
inspiring. And what really stood out to me is how, you said, who can define me? Who can say what my journey is? I loved how you even brought up this idea when they plant odds, when they place odds, usually it's based off of what's been seen before. When do they ever say the odds of the impossible happening? Well, who's to say that you don't have the impossible within you? Who's to say that the power within you is unfathomable to other people but yourself? And it's only going to be fathomable once you prove it, once you show them. And that's what I heard a lot from your story there.
definitely. And it was kind of the beginning of a trend in my life, where I started to realize that I was my own champion and I believed in me. I didn't really have to listen to the outside noise. So once I realized I didn't need cheerleaders to accomplish big things, I stopped listening to the naysayers as much as well. So it all became like almost, I don't want to call it white noise, but I didn't really care either way whether people believed in me or they didn't. It didn't really sway me either way. Once every time I set a goal up for myself, it was just about me and my standard. And I would have to have something that would drive me, that would matter to me more than anything or any odds or anything that anyone tried to convince me that I couldn't accomplish something.
Mm, I love that. I want to expand on that because so often I feel like just being aware of the odds can be powerful. Not that that should drive us, that we're going to use the odds that are stacked against us as, oh, this is just where we're at, this is who we're going to be, but we use them as leverage, as launch pads to achieve the impossible. And so can you even share how were you able to leverage the odds in your situation? How did you use that awareness to your advantage?
Yeah, well, for example, when they kind of expressed to me these specific credits I needed,
Hmm.
to graduate, they kind of told me the recipe to completing this without telling me that. They were telling me everything that I could do, but then still saying, but it's not enough. But in
Mm,
my mind, I'm thinking, but if I do all of this at the same time, it's enough.
right.
But but here we go with the odds. The average person isn't going to do all three of them at the same time or four or five. They're going to do one or this, or they're going to say, well, a person's not going to go to school all morning and all night, and they can't really do that for 2 years. No one's going to stick that through, especially someone who was in high school for 2 years and didn't get any credits. That same person can't flip a switch. And so they're telling me these things because I don't want to say an argumentative person, but I like to debate. I like to ask a lot of questions. I've learned that I benefit by asking people questions and they tell me, even if they don't want to tell me the answers or they don't want to help me, they help me by telling me what not to do. See, I already know you're gonna, when you go to night school for the first year, you're not gonna start for the second. It's gonna be too hard for you. You're not gonna want to take certain classes, and just to put this in perspective for you, I was I was so credit deficient that I had PE at night school. Who has PE at night school? But but it was also something too that it kind of put in perspective to me that I was willing to do anything. At first, it was to get this diploma because my mom wants me to. But then it became to get this diploma to prove everyone wrong.
Mm,
And for me, that competition with proving people wrong is always going to be bigger in my eyes than defying any odds, any specific odds. Just the actual one-on-one competition of someone believing I can't do something. It just does something to me. It just fuels me.
yeah, I was about to say it's your fuel.
Definitely.
I can relate to that. I was doing an internship at Pearson and
Mhm.
I was doing a lot of different speaking engagements, and it can be nerve wracking, right? Like there's, just knowing, again, you're putting something out there that's permanent. You don't know who's listening to it and how they may perceive it. You can't possibly put all of your intentions to allow everyone to understand exactly how you wanted it to. And so it can cause a little bit of nerves. And so I remember in the morning, when I was feeling those nerves, it was weird because mentally I was locked in. Like I was ready to go. I had the speech in mind or whatever message I was going to say. But physically, my body was nervous. Like I just didn't know, I was uncomfortable. And so every morning I would actually throw up. Like before all of my messages and speeches, I would throw up in the morning and I couldn't eat. Like I literally felt sick. And I felt like the odds were stacked against me to have a good presentation, to push out that message I really wanted to send out. But I would use it as fuel. It got to a point where after I would throw up and I would feel completely disgusting and sweat is dripping down my face, this is exactly where I want to be. This is telling me I'm in the right direction. I'm using these odds stacked against me. I'm using the things that may make me psychologically feel like I'm at a disadvantage to my advantage at this point.
That's good. And that's usually how it should go, but sometimes, like we were talking about, the weight and the that you can get from understanding the odds you're against.
Right.
Sometimes you can get in your own head and kind of feel defeated before you even start the game. And that's the other side of it that I try my best to stay away from is once I understand the odds I'm against, I kind of put all my energy into not obsessing over things and obsessing over who's been able to do this, who hasn't. I use the odds and me understanding them. I try to kind of really dive into that before I dive into the goal. And then I become strategic about stepping over those odds. I break those odds down and I do it. I look at everything mathematically for me, So I say, let me cut. They say people can't accomplish this goal or that goal. How many people have done it? Half of them. Well, let me look at the people that have done this. Mm-hmm. Whatever they've done, let me try to do half of that now and then half of that later, just to try to see if I can figure it out. And I keep breaking. I try to figure out a systematic way to not have to take these odds on all at once, to break it down into small pieces, and it kind of, for me, things like that help, because if I obsess over the fact that no one usually graduates on time or no one ever has accomplished this goal, sometimes you have to be the first. Sometimes you have to be the person that starts it, even if you don't accomplish that. But your experience is going to create a roadmap for somebody else to pick up that baton and keep going. And as human beings, sometimes we get so wrapped up in our experience, but we're on the backs of other people. Everything we go through, even within the story I told you about me in night school, somebody had to decide that night school was acceptable, that they had to go through that we needed another path, that there has to be another way for someone to get a diploma. I followed in their footsteps and accomplished that, and that's a great thing sometimes, man, to just see the journey other people are going through,
Absolutely. And I thought you brought up a really strong point there on how these odds can be self-inflicted. Like there's a point where you start believing these odds. You start believing that these odds hold weight and that they're overpowering your willpower within you. And so I'm curious to know, do you feel that's often the case, that these odds are in fact self-inflicted at the end of the day?
I feel that they are. I feel like they can be. I feel like there are some serious odds that everybody's up against, that are at play, that are outside of your, control, for sure, But I do feel that, a lot of what you feel when you're up against the odds, the head games you play, the lack of confidence, the lack of being prepared, the people around you, your circle that aren't so supportive, these things are also going to affect the way you view your this journey you're about to embark on, whatever you're up against. So it can be self-inflicted for sure, but it's just about being focused on accomplishing the goal more than being part of the experience that other people have had when they failed, because it takes no energy or effort to be part of the people that have failed against the odds. You don't even need to start the journey. I can just say, a million people tried to, walk 100 miles and no one could do that. So, I'm not even going to waste my time. Or you could decide to say, I don't want to say that I'm better than any human being on earth, because that's not what it takes to be confident. You have to have an understanding that you're better than you were yesterday. You're better than how you feel about yourself. And when you say self-inflicted, a lot of that is at play when you're trying to defy odds or just trying to accomplish any goal, to be honest. A lot of it is when you begin, it can be head games and things like that. But if you really want to accomplish, whatever you're trying to accomplish, or just make a good effort, a really good effort, you have to get out of your own head, and you have to kind of be strategic and use the odds to your favor. Good planning, things of that nature. Research people that have tried, or even attempted to do what you're trying to do, and humbly look at their journey. Try to find an understanding. Why don't look at it like they failed? Why did they struggle on this journey? Because you don't know, maybe what they experienced on that journey, they didn't fail. Maybe that was good enough for them to change their life, and then their journey took another turn. We never know, when there's so much information in just being a student of an experience, and I don't want to get too far off topic with that, but just the main thing that can be self-inflicted is just your lack of confidence.
And that's encouraging, though, at the same time. That we can shift that in a different frame of that can be encouraging, because what that also says is that we have control of the situation. We can control the controllables. We can control our actions. We can control our behavior, right? And so even though there's odds stacked up against us, which, again, more often than not, they're based off of something that's been seen before, based off of something that seems reasonable, that doesn't seem so out of the ordinary, I find great confidence. Like, that provides me confidence, just knowing that I have the power to do that, that all of us have the power to defy the odds in our life if we just apply ourselves and if we commit to this journey of learning in the process.
Definitely. And we all do. And we all, as long as we commit to just being part of the experience and giving our all, so many different avenues and things open up. There's so many different levels that we experience when we're trying to accomplish goals or defy odds or just be the best human being or the best person we can be. That's what it's about, is really trying to not understand how people have failed, but trying to understand how you can succeed. That's a big thing. That's a huge thing, man.
Absolutely. And speaking of succeeding in huge things, so often defying the odds, it feels like it's an insurmountable thing to conquer. It's too far in the future. We can't see the result. And so I actually like to bring up something I read from, I believe it's Will's autobiography. And he talked about just laying a brick, how it's so important as we're on this journey of defying the odds to be patient, just one brick at a time as we're building this wall, right? Not focusing so much on, I'm going to achieve this in one day. I'm going to defy all these odds you guys have stacked against me in one day. No, it's going to be a journey. It's going to be a beautiful one at that. And so what would you say on that too, on just having that patience throughout the journey as you're defying the odds in your life?
Well, just in order to also have patience on the journey, you just have to be present, and you have to be grateful. And you have to truly, if you're trying to accomplish something, do it for the right reasons. Because if you are, you'll understand that it's a process. Like just as in, with the story that you gave about, the different things I did with you guys with the coaching for basketball, different stats I put on things, I didn't do one thing hoping to win games. I started out wanting to make connections with you guys. So I had different relationships with every one of you guys, the boys, the girls, that was my main goal. And me trying to have these relationships, I saw what basketball meant to you guys. So when I saw what basketball meant to you guys, I saw that I wanted to be a part of that journey for you. So instead of helping me be a good coach or me winning games, I said, how can I help Mykel become a better player? How can I help this person? So it made me do certain things like watch the basketball game 10 times, write down everyone's stats on each CD, because this is for you along your journey. Here, go with that.
Mm.
The next kid, here, go with that. Now, it just so happened we won those games and that was great, but that I didn't really do one thing for that. That's not why I bought the Gatorade. That was to let you guys be a part of a team. I didn't know, when I was younger, there was a lot of things that I had going on to where I just wanted to be part of something. So this may be, the only time one of the kids on the team is part of a team. So now they have a nice trophy. Now they have a nice jersey. Now they have a Gatorade. Now they have, certain things that they can take with them along the journey of their lives. So to tie everything back in, it's really just being present and being fluid in the experience, to where if you go along the journey and someone takes you in a different direction, which you guys did, with me, it makes you a better human being, a better coach, a better person. You get to defy the odds a little bit. It's more specific and more tailored to you, a better experience for yourself.
Absolutely. Hello, mic check. I know my voice may sound pretty deep right now compared to the rest of the recording. I'm in the process of editing this audio right now, and I realized that something came up as we were speaking in the initial recording. When I was responding back to the amazing kind of story that Coach Rich was sharing on how much he just invested into our basketball team, I realized that we kind of stopped during that recording. I lost my train of thought, I believe, and so we stopped, and then when I picked it back up, I didn't really go back to it. I kind of switched topics, and I did not want it to come off in any way, shape, or form that I just wanted to disregard his message. In fact, I was really inspired by it. Being a player on that team, to hear, I already kind of shared initially how I already noticed Coach Richard was going above and beyond. He really cared. But then to hear 5 years or whatever later, I know it's been more than 5 years, but to hear years later the reasoning behind it and how his focus was never to win games. And it's funny, and he might be capping a little bit, I will admit, because he was a competitive guy and he wanted to win those games. But it's just beautiful to hear how it initially started with him just wanting to form that relationship with us, and how in turn, yeah, we went undefeated, and yeah, we won every game, and in fact we dominated a lot of teams, but it was so much fun. And so I just wanted to bring that point, not to harp on it too much. I know you probably have your own notes that you're thinking about right now based off of what he said, but I just want to make sure I did not neglect what he said at all. All right, high-pitched voice, we're back at it. Enjoy the rest of the show, please. So I really want to talk about perhaps odds that I feel relate to a lot of people, and that's like the odds of escaping an identity, or the odds that you will be this identity. So often I've been talking to people and they talk about how it was so draining because they always wanted me to be this person. They always wanted me to be that person. And they had this path in front of me, and I didn't want that for myself. And so often I feel like people have to face this. One of the very odds they defy is the odd of just like this individual, this identity that people feel like they need to be. And so even for myself to apply this to my life, kind of revisiting that blood clot too, and going back to my exit from basketball. So long, like people looked at me like that was who I was. I'm a basketball player above all else. I look like one. I obviously play good, so I should be one, and all of those things. And so I remember it was really tough for me when I decided to step away from basketball, because that's what people saw as my value. They looked at as my exit from basketball as, wow, he's giving away. Look at he's wasting a gift. But for me, what I believed truthfully was I'm just creating one right now by applying myself, by taking a step away from basketball and now saying, let me see what I can do outside of the court. Let me really invest myself into school. Let me meet some of my peers. Let me get involved in some of the clubs and organizations I wasn't able to get involved with when I was busy with basketball. And so I bring that up because that was really tough for me my freshman year of high school, was all of the odds people put against me of who I was and who they thought I was, I guess is a better way to say it, and just kind of running away from that. And what I feel is like too often external views and judgment are given more precedence than our internal joy and reason for existence. Because for me, my reason wasn't basketball. It came to the point where I didn't personally feel like that was my passion, but rather my passion was inspiring others, was being myself, being on this journey of learning for a lifetime. I remember people didn't really know, like people, just thought that was goofy. But I think the remedy in all of it, how I was able to get through, is just by doing what I love, because what I loved to do at that time was learn. But just doing what you love isn't enough, though. That's what I realized too. You have to do something you love that makes a positive impact on others in the process. And even that's not enough. You not just impacting others, but you better hope that those people push this idea forward, that they push it well beyond you ever thought possible. And so I bring up all of this, Coach, because I just feel like this is one of those odds that I feel like a lot of us face in life. Do you feel like you can relate at all? Do you have any stories perhaps where you've seen this before?
Well, definitely, man. For me personally, one of my biggest accomplishments is just being I'm really a humble parent, but I really feel like I'm a great father. Like I hear that a lot. I don't hear that I'm a good dad. I hear I'm a great father from good dads and from most people. And everything didn't start out that way. I had my son when I was 18 years old, and I was covered in tattoos, doing drugs with my friends. And, it didn't even dawn on me till the day my son was born that I was actually really having a child. Like it didn't really dawn on me, till I still remember I called one of, a guy that I was cooking with, that I consider a mentor, is a great guy. I called him and I kept repeating myself and I just kept saying, I'm a dad, man. Like I'm a dad. Like I'm a dad. Like it really hit me. And that was a great moment for me. But once that moment left and I had to take my son home, reality set in that I didn't have people around me, male parental figures that could help me, that were inspiring me, that believed in me, and then reality started to set in, like you're covered in these tattoos. You and your dad weren't that close at this time. You're only 18 years old. Think of a teenage parent. You're gonna fail, basically. And I don't know if that's something I felt or that's something that I experienced, but it really made me say to myself, like there were times when I would just cry next to my son while he was in his crib, and I just cried. I don't know why, but I'd just be crying and I'd be thinking to myself, how am I going to do this? And I still remember, I had a conversation with my mom and she was just on me. Like, you're out drinking with your friends. You're not taking this serious. You're going to be a deadbeat dad. And I remember that phrase. And I know she didn't mean it. She was, it was just conversation. But for me, it's one of those moments again. It clicked and it changed everything. And I didn't know how I was going to do this, but I knew that I had to use the resources I had, which was Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I'm watching Uncle Phil. Bill Cosby, the Cosby Show. It's funny, man, but Bill Cosby Show, I'm watching Bill Cosby. Down to Good Times, I'm watching, The Father on Good Times. Every father from TV that I remembered, I wanted to be the best version of them. And that became standard. That was the only standard I had now. Now I didn't care if I only had to show up to this meeting and be around my son for this time. Now I'm at every practice he has. Now I'm at every PT parent teacher conference, and I'm always around my son. I'm teaching him everything I know. I'm spending all my time with him. And it became something to where my identity took on, it changed. And I went from somebody that everybody looked at like there was no way I would be a great father, to now I'm the father that's coaching the basketball teams. Now I'm the father that's at everything that's pertaining to my son. Me and my son are best friends. I'm checking his grades. I'm on Parent Link. I'm always asking questions. I took everything so serious because I looked at the standard of these TV dads were so amazing, and they partially raised me. I felt like they raised me at times. So I took that negative of me not having the greatest role models at that time, And I said, I'm not even going to think about that. I'm just going to hold myself to the standard of becoming a great dad. And my son, like, everyone knows that I love my son. He's my best friend. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Shout out Tyson.
Shout out to Tyson, man. But it really changed my life, and I started wanting to become the best father I could. And to be, if I'm going to be honest with you, man, I was living for my son. Like at that time, I projected confidence in stupid scenarios, you know, around my friends and out at clubs and stupid things. But I was really depressed, you know, low self-esteem, you know, extremely insecure. And I literally was living for my son. Like the love I had for him is sometimes the only thing that kept me alive, man. I'm being honest with you. And along this journey for him, I started liking who I was becoming, because at first it was for him. You know, it was almost like a mask. I'm just going to show up to this because that's what dads do. Like, it was so funny. I remember one of the first moments where I felt like I'm a pretty decent dad. My son was like 3 years old, right? And he couldn't be in anything because he's 3 years old. You really can't put a 3-year-old in anything. So I know that I wanted to have him, and he wanted to be in like tumbling or something like that. He's flipping around the house. So in order for me to put him in tumbling, it was only tap dance, tumbling, and ballet. So it was 3. Now, you know Tyson. He's going to kill me for this story, though. But I feel like, you know, when I was taking him to these classes, and they were all 3 at once, you know, tap, tumbling, and ballet. And while he was there, he'd be doing all the things that he's doing with the kids, but all of the moms would be together. They're all sitting in a circle, and I'm just the only dad there, and I'm covered in tattoos. I'm 21, and they're all saying the opposite of my friends, people I know, normal guys. They're saying, I commend you for being here. You know, you're a pretty good dad. A lot of dads wouldn't be here. You know, you're going to have a well-rounded kid. And I'm kind of laughing it off, but it's good to hear it. And at that time, man, when you're really insecure, when you're insecure, man, you don't really know how to take compliments. So I'm just, you know, kind of giving the guys, what's up, thanks, you know, hey, you know, whatever. but as I'm leaving, you know, those things, I started collecting those little wins, man. I started collecting those wins, and I started realizing that the people that always talk and have so much to say about what you're accomplishing or what you can and what you cannot do, those are the people you shouldn't be listening to. Listen to the people on the journey with you. See, those other moms were on the journey with me, man. They were taking their kids to these classes. So why am I listening or trying to make sense of people that are doing what I'm doing? And that was the first time where I really felt like, as a parent, I have to lead with my heart, always, because that's what brought me to that class. If I would have actually thought about it, I would have thought to myself, there's going to be all these moms in here. There's going to be all these people that are probably going to look down on me. They're going to know that I probably should. I would have talked to myself out of it. But just me being naive, I was blind to all of that. So I went in there, man, and just enjoyed myself. To kind of sum up my parenting style with my son, that's all I've really been doing his whole life. It's just being present, leading with my heart, giving him the best chance to be a well-rounded person. I learned from it. One parenting story, man, along this way was, I remember I felt I was doing a great job, and my son was like 11 or 12 years old, man. I heard him make a comment to somebody about how hard I was on him. And that kind of made me feel bad. And now here we go. I'm thinking about all the odds and the things that I'm up against. Now, my doubt is creeping in, man. So I was proactive, active, and I felt in that moment, since I feel like I'm going wrong, how about I ask him how I'm going wrong? How about I ask him? But if I ask him, he's going to be a kid. He's going to say, hey, Dad, you're great. You're amazing. Nothing's wrong with the way you treat me. Everything's fine. So I said, hey, man, I'm doing this thing for work where you got to write down like 5 or 6 things you love about me. Things that I'm the best in, everything. But then, so it's well-rounded, you got to write down a couple things that you don't like about me and you don't like that I do, and he wrote down some things. I'm not going to share them because it's private, but I kept that in my wallet, man, for about 7 years. That's how much that meant to me. It let me know that I was going to always have to work, even to this day. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited about parenting this guy when he's 50. God willing, I'm still here. I'm excited about understanding that I will never be a perfect parent. I will never be the parent on TV. But that was just my starting point. Now it's taken on a life of its own. Now I'm not just loving, I'm not just here because I love my son. Now I want to be in it. I'm thinking of my son's son. I'm thinking of the blueprint that I'm laying for my grandkids to be parents. When you fall in love with the journey, or you fall in love with being focused, I'm not even thinking about my obstacles now. I'm thinking about my grandson's obstacles. So now I have to parent at such a level with my son to where I have to always make sure that I'm listening, always make sure that I'm understanding, always make sure that I'm putting him first. And let me, say, I know I'm not perfect parent at all, but I know I'm a great parent for what I'm trying to accomplish. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Go on, man.
You know what stands out to me about all of that is how you're talking about how you need people around you to defy these odds. You need multiple people, multiple examples, even from just ladies that are hanging out there with their kids at, ballerina or class or whatever it is, ballet. But what stands out to me really, even when you said that story, is how not only were you defying the odds through, this fake identity or the identity they placed on you or what they thought you were going to be, but you in turn allowed Tyson to defy his own odds. And I want to share an example that I've had with my mom. And this is a very personal example, and I think offers a bit of clarity into why I feel so passionate about defying the odds. I feel it represents my very existence, my identity in itself. And so if I may, before I was born, I had a heart issue. They ran some tests. My mom was about 8 months pregnant. And just as a bit of context, my mom had my brother at 15 years old. She had me at 18. So she's very young, hasn't even graduated high school yet. And so let me just say, I want to pause and say it's a blessing that I'm even here. But we'll also see throughout the course of the story, it's just even more of a blessing that I'm here, and it's miraculous, truly. And so 8 months into her pregnancy, they did some tests, and they found that I had heart failure. And this was obviously a huge deal. And so doctors were coming in. They were telling her it's a serious heart problem. She's about a month away from delivering me. And so there's a lot of stress that's going through her mind, right? And not only does she have to worry about me, she's nearing her graduation. So she has all of her school to worry about. She has to do all of that. People at school aren't giving her that good of a time. She's very sick off of the medication that I'm now taking because of how sick I am. And so you can see this is just like all bad, all the odds that were stacked against us. And it was so bad that, in fact, when they were driving me, they eventually had to drive me to Spokane. And before that 2-hour drive, my mom's midwife told her, pretty much, say your goodbyes to your child, before, I don't know if he's going to make it. And so that's what they were telling my mom, that, he's gone. But my mom had faith in me. Even after I was born, she continued that faith. I was born, but that wasn't the end of it. That wasn't the end of the heart problems. Even more serious things were in front of us. They assumed I had tachycardia, I believe it's called, but they figured out that I didn't. So they were doing a bunch of medications. I think I was in the hospital for about a week. My heart was beating around 250 beats a minute, absolutely insane. I was nearly at heart failure, or if that is heart failure, then there it is. And so near the end of the week, they were like, hey, Jessica, this is the last option. This is the last type of medication we can give him before we'll have to consider heart surgery. And that wasn't good because I was already at a disadvantage there. Usually they weren't doing heart surgery until the infant was at least 6 months old, and I was 2 months old at that time. And so yet again, all of the odds that were stacked against me. And so as they were doing this last medication they gave me, they all had their eyes on the monitor. All the doctors, nurses, specialists, whoever was in the room, they all watched the monitor as they gave me this last hope right before surgery that seemed unlikely. And as they were looking at the monitor, Nothing happened. It usually goes down within a minute, but it didn't go down at all. And you can just imagine the life that's just sucked out of the room at that moment. I touched base with my mom to kind of tell me the story, and she told me at that moment, she just laid her head down on my chest. And she said she just started crying for the first time. That was the first time she really like broke down throughout the whole process and all the stress she was under. And at that moment, my heart rate went down. At that exact moment, when she put her head on my chest, my heart rate began to go down. And then when she took her head off my chest, it went back up. But there's something very unique about that, is that when she put her head on my chest and she was crying, she just had faith in me. She told me to make it. She instead of talking about all of the obstacles that were lied ahead of us, everything that said I wasn't going to make it, she started talking about what we would do, how we would get through this. And that was encouraging. I had her to defy the odds that we were both stacked against. Eventually, I went on to the hospital, and they were like, okay, we got about a 5% chance at this surgery. The 4-hour surgery that they thought was, the surgery they thought was going to take 4 hours ended up taking 9 hours because it wasn't really what they thought all along. In fact, the doctor afterwards, when they finished the surgery successfully, or at least not the surgery, but they ended up lasering a piece of tissue, I guess, attached to my heart. They talked about how something just told him to check somewhere else. Check somewhere that no one else was looking the whole time. And he did. And he found that it was completely the opposite that they thought of. And so they tried something out, ended up working. And obviously the fact I'm speaking here today proves that I'm alive and proves that we conquered the impossible. We conquered what seemed like was all the odds stacked against us. And so when you shared that story with you and your son, I was just reminded and honestly touched, because I think about my mom and how in a moment where all the odds yet again were stacked against us, she had that faith and she pushed us through and defied her own odds in the process.
That's an amazing story, man. That's an amazing story. And having the faith, that's key. That
Right.
stuff, things like that are the things that makes the obstacles smaller. It makes, your focus, your faith, your drive. It makes those obstacles smaller, and that lets you know that maybe just, if you think about it, the belief, let's just say just for example, the belief that how much your faith your mom had could have made the doctor refuse to not figure this out. Just those little things, your mom having faith and your mom believing in that moment, that those are the things that change, that shift things, man.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to stay with the faith. That was a beautiful story, man. That was beautiful.
I appreciate it.
It's funny just hearing that. I never knew that, man. It's so funny. We're finding out new stuff about each other.
That's awesome. And the listeners, they're getting the inside scoop. They're catching up on info we haven't touched base on. We've been talking for over 10 years. So they're definitely in a good position.
Definitely, man. Definitely. This is good. This is good stuff, man. I'm enjoying it, I feel like I'm defying the odds now, just, facing my fear of, speaking publicly. At least I'm not in front of a group right now. So.
Well, I can assure you that the people listening to this right now are inspired by you, and hopefully they get to hear more of Coach Rich out there speaking his truth out there, hopefully. Definitely,
man. Whenever you have me on now, you're going to have to keep me off the podcast now. It's not, it's going to become it's going to literally become my podcast. No,
literally. You know what? That brings up a great point. Let me bring that up. This idea of the Mykel Broady podcast, even, and how I talked about it's my podcast, like it reads that way when you look at the design of the logo and all that. That was the amazing advice. That was amazing advice from Coach Richard. I was talking on the phone with him, and he said, well, when I saw that logo, this is what I see. this idea of my podcasts for your listeners out there. And so I know it may have sounded like I took credit for it the first episode, but no, that was Coach Rich, and I was learning from him. And so he contributed to the podcast well before he was even on it. And as we kind of wrap up, Coach, I want you to contribute one more time, if that's okay. Can you provide a challenge to the listeners out there that may be facing their own seemingly insurmountable odds? What challenge do you have for them?
The challenge that I would have would be to be your own superhero, man. Believe in yourself like you believe in others. Believe that you can accomplish anything. Believe that you can do the impossible. Believe you can be the first. Believe that you can be strong when you're feeling weak. Be the person that you look to. Look in that mirror when you feel like there's nowhere to find someone to help you or inspire you. Go find a mirror, look into it, and understand that you can inspire everyone. You can be whatever you want to be. You can. There's no obstacle that can be bigger than your drive, your focus, your hope that you can accomplish your goal. And that would be my challenge to them, is to just, when I say be a superhero, just believe. Believe in yourself, believe you can do anything, man, and be passionate about that. If you're going to be crazy in today's world, be crazy about the belief you have in yourself.
Love that, Coach. Thank you so much for the challenge. For all the listeners out there, I just want to say thank you. I don't even I was about to say a bit of a candid moment, but all these moments are candid, so that, we should know better. But I want to thank all the listeners out there for those listening right now, even if you're a first time listener, thank you. This podcast is all about being curious. It's not for us to hop on here and say, we have all the answers, listen to us. You might not agree with some of the things we say. And that offers me a fine segue into the point that there's listener feedback episodes I plan on doing. I know I haven't done it for the Learn for a Lifetime episode. I didn't get much feedback there, but hopefully I will get much more feedback for this episode, and I'll just combine the two episodes together. And so we'll kind of carry on the conversation of Learn for a Lifetime and Defy the Odds in the same episode. But I just want to, on top of Coach Rich's challenge, I want to challenge all the listeners to let your voice be heard, or at least just share your thoughts with me. Even if you don't want your voice to be on the podcast, even if you want to be anonymous, whatever, let me know. I just would love to hear what you're saying, because at the end of the day, this podcast isn't for me. It's not for me to put my name on something and say, hey, listen to this. It's for us to all learn together. It's for us to all learn and grow together and be a part of this journey. And so that's my call to action, on top of the amazing call to action Coach Rich has already given. Coach, do you have any last words to say to any of the listeners at all?
Just love yourself and be optimistic and just learn and love life and be part of the experience.
Couldn't have said it better. Please, everyone, have a great day. You already know the drill. Let's hit the music. I can't with you, man. I can't.
I'm paying attention, man. You gotta come on. This you gotta bring it.
I do gotta bring it, but I'm just laughing.
Well, do you want to hide the cameras?
No. We're not gonna hide the camera. I'm gonna turn my light off though.
You're gonna be laughing at me because I'm really listening, man. I'm giving it to you.
All right.
You got to bring it, man. Look, I told Nicole, hey, this is my professional debut, man. Let's go, baby.
I can't with you, man.
All right.